Hi FlossTube, my name is Grace. I'm the Paisley Stitcher here on FlossTube and Instagram. This is FlossTube number 8. Welcome to my channel. This is a channel about cross stitch, and today is Saturday, November 25th, 2023. Here in the United States, we had Thanksgiving on Thursday, and typically we get a 4-day weekend, which I'm loving, and it gives me an opportunity to visit with you and film a FlossTube. In my last FlossTube, I shared with you Gigi R's ATS 1871, a Saxony sampler, and a little bit about my research that I had done. After that FlossTube, I went down a big rabbit hole, and I can't wait to share with you all of the information that I found. But before we do that, I thought I'd show you some whips. So kind of the agenda for today is I'm going to show you the whips. Then I'm going to share with you all of the information I found on German Saxony samplers. I have a lot of new Gigi R patterns to share with you. And I've got a little bit of haul and a giveaway. So let's start with whips, starts, finishes. And my first one is Sarah Fletcher, 1841, and this is by Hands Across the Sea Samplers. I started this with my friend Barry from Stitch Folk, as Lisa from Prim's on Greenway invited us to join her. And she's already finished. Lisa's already finished. It's beautiful. But I love the colors. I'm using 40 count Seraphim Sand Dunes with the Soie de J silk. And I just love that urn of carnations. Love the butterfly. Just lots of really pretty colors. Lots to love about this sampler. And I think this is a start and a finish since the last time we visited. This is by Gigi R, and this is Lady in Red Spinning Her Wool. And I can remember, I took this with me to summer school at the attic, and I remember working on like that checkerboard in the center during summer school when we weren't in class. So what did I stitch this on? That would be good to tell you, wouldn't it? Okay, here we go. 40 count Lakeside Straw Flower using Soie de J silk. It's a silk conversion from the attic. And I love the colors. It was so much fun. Look at all those little animals on that bottom row. Really pretty sampler. So it's Lady in Red Spinning Her Wool by Gigi R. Okay, next, here comes the ATS 1871 Saxony sampler. And I'm looking for the cover, which I have over here. Okay. This is really long. German samplers from this time period are typically long and narrow because that's the size of the looms that they had to make the linen or whatever they stitched on. It was long and narrow. So I am pretty close to a finish. If you look at the bottom, that's the very bottom. I just have a couple of bands to fill in, and I will be finished. I also have the angels right here that I need to finish. I am stitching this on 40 count Thornfield by Needle and Flax, using the called for Gentle Arts and Simply Shaker overdyed cottons. Some motifs that I want to point out to you that we're going to talk about today are the lion. Is the lion. That's one of them. Okay. Also, this is called a dove coat or cot. And then we'll talk about these motifs, this motif as well. Look at my little hiker. And the beautiful geometric bands. So this is a beautiful, beautiful sampler by Gigi R. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. All right, the next one now, this is a new start. When I went to the attic for summer school in August, I did a pre-order for a bunch of Gigi R patterns, which I'm gonna show you. This one wasn't even on my radar, and Jean, the owner of the attic, had several of her Gigi R starts in a glass case, and this was one of them. And the cover doesn't do it justice. It's Anne Lansing, 1842. If you go to the attic, it's the cabinet against the right wall, glass cabinet, that Jean has it's at least 3/4 of the way finished. It's gorgeous. Both Barry and I fell in love with it, and we kitted it up while we were there. These are the silks. Now these colors are so me. Look at all the golds. Have you seen my walls? Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful silks. And this is a conversion from the attic. And let me show you my start. This is that altar is some solid stitching. Here we go. So where have I started? I started in the center, and I started right there. Whoops. Trying to make sure you can see everything. So I cannot wait to progress on Anne Lansing by Gigi R. And what I was showing you where I started is right here. Just look at how beautiful that is. Look at that border. You'll see all of my new starts are really big. I don't know what I'm doing, but there you have it. Okay, this one I've been working on for a while. This is Mary Wigglesworth, and my computer just locked me out. This is Mary Wigglesworth by Hands Across the Sea, and I'm stitching this on 40 count marbled pointer by XJU Design. Oh, love the colors. I only have the bottom third to do. I know I stitched on this when I was watching the coronation of King Charles, because at the top it says, "Fear God, honor the king." See that in the blue letters? And then I just have the bottom third. And I'm using the Soie silk on this one as well. 40 count marbled pointer. Okay, my computer just shut off. I'm really gonna, there we go. Okay. Next up, Rose Ada Featherstone. Now this was an exclusive from Hands Across the Sea with Hobby House Needleworks. Yeah, Hobby House Needleworks. I am stitching this. I got the kit, all kitted up, and I'm stitching it on 46 count antique lace by Seraphim. And I'm using the Soie 103s that are called for. And they're gorgeous. Look at those colors. Oh, I love them. I'm struggling with this project. And I love the colors. And I think my friend Nilla and I were talking about this, and I think we figured it out. I'm drawn to more warm fabrics. And I think she says we can do something to make it warm, to warm it up. So I'm willing to try that because these colors are just so beautiful. So it's Rose Ada Featherstone. It's a beautiful pattern. Just look how fun those motifs are and how colorful. So more to come on Rose. All right, I have a finish. And actually, I claimed this as a finish in December of 2022, but I ran out of some green 103 threads. So I got some and I finished it. So now I'm counting it as a finish. Again, it's Florence Mary Dickinson by Hands Across the Sea. This was also an exclusive at Hobby House Needleworks. And I stitched Florence on 46 count Creme Brulee by Tabby Cat using the Soie 103 silk thread. Really pretty. Yeah. So that counts as a finish again. I'm counting it as another finish. Okay, another new start. I started this on Thanksgiving Day with my friend Kay Ross. This is Anne Uffendell, 1835. And I'm using the Soie Soie de J silk. Look at these beautiful, beautiful colors. Look at that. And I'll show you my start, which is hidden. This is a tea towel from Hands Across the Sea, and I use it to cover my work. I started with the berry bowl. So you'll see when I pull my start out, I started with the berry bowl. And here she is. And I'm stitching Anne on 40 count Old Mushroom by XJU Designs using the called for Soie de J silk. So I think I've worked on this 2 days so far. So that's a brand new start. Another big project. Yeah. Oh, but wait, they get way bigger. I am so excited about this one. I started, this is by the Scarlet Letter, and this is SDW, a German band sampler circa 1710. Before I show you the picture, the stitch count is 200 wide, so this is a long, narrow band sampler, 200 stitches wide and 778 stitches long. Look at that. The church, the flowers, the lion, the beautiful bands in the bottom. I kitted this up when I was at the attic. I was at the attic in November for Autumn Abundance, the retreat, which was phenomenal. And I had the pattern, and so I kitted it up with the linen and the silk. And I'm using 45 count Legacy linen. The color is Thai iced tea, 45 count. And I did my own conversion for the silk. The pattern calls for DMC or a Soie, the Soie de J silk. I converted that to 103. This is the majority of the colors. There's a few more. And while I was there, I was sending pictures to Barry, and she's like, would you kit that up for me too? So we both started this the day before Thanksgiving. You ready for my big start? She's got more than I do. I've got a letter and a half and the row underneath the church. So I did a center start. I purchased, with the Legacy linen, they were able to cut a linear half yard. And I cut that down, I think, to 45 inches long, and I still have enough for another sampler. But they were, by doing that, I was able to get the more narrow cut linen, so it's hard to see. Things will show up more as I get farther along. STW. I think it's very unique, and you'll see when I start sharing some of the other samplers I've discovered. This is part of my rabbit hole. I'll share with you what I found. Okay. That's all I've worked on since my last FlossTube. One thing I want to comment about, sorry, there's nobody at the door. In my last floss tube, I said, excuse me, Max, no bark, no bark. In my last floss tube, I said I was doing a tent stitch for the over 1 on 40 and 46 count linen. Nicola Parkman from Hands Across the Sea on her floss tube talks about over 1. Floss tube number 324 at about the 18-minute mark. She talks about stitching over 1, and she made some really excellent points. Now you may remember I was talking about doing the tent stitch, just a half a stitch on 40 and 46 count for the over 1. And so here's what she said. On the 46 count linen for over 1, try soie surfine and make a full cross. Nicola says the thread is finer and it's a real game changer. And she went on to say it's also important to stitch with the right size needle, right? We know that. The size of the eye and the right tip of the needle are gonna make a world of difference. With cross stitch, we use tapestry point needles. And she says the eye is determined by what you're gonna use that needle for, 36, 40, 46. Typically we use DMC or soie d'Agé, and we use a 28, number 28 tapestry point needle. She says for 103 or the soie surfine, drop down to a smaller eye, and she recommended the John James number 10 needles for the 100.3 silk, and for surfine, the number 12 size needle. And she said these are short beaded tapestry point needles. So I just ordered a bunch of them. I can't wait to try them. Thank you, Nicola. I was really struggling. It's not that I'm necessarily intimidated by the over 1. It's making the full cross sometimes just felt too chunky on the higher count linen with regular DMC or soie d'Agé. So soie surfine, we're gonna give it a try. I also wanna share with you some comments I received on my last video. Wonderful comments. So if I mispronounce your, not FlossTube, YouTube handle, I apologize. The first one is Betsa B. Barley Corn, and she wrote me from Italy and shared the meaning of many motifs. She said the lobster, now you may remember I was talking about funky samplers, and these samplers are from Germany, and why is there a lobster on a sampler from Germany? She says the lobster can be used to symbolize a soldier of the Roundheads and any red-coated British soldier. However, the samplers are from Saxony, so maybe they have a different meaning. She also went on to say the lion is a symbol of Christ as the victor. That makes sense. My friend Bettina, who lives in Germany, she said the crab is a symbol of the resurrection. In the middle, and then she goes on to say, in the Middle Ages, the peacock became a bird of paradise and a symbol of immortality and resurrection. And then Cassandra McCraw, 2386, wrote to me and told me about a book called Charted Peasant Designs from Saxon, Transylvania, that had a little bit of an explanation in history about charted designs. And so I've ordered the book. I found it on Amazon, and I'll share it with you on my next floss tube. It looks really interesting. This is what I mean about a rabbit hole. You start talking with people, you start reading, and you're finding different things, and it's all just so interesting. So last time we talked about Saxony samplers, and since then I've purchased German patterns, German band samplers and Saxony samplers from the Scarlet Letter, Gigi R, and this website entitled European Reproduction Samplers. And I'm actually going to use the box down below, and I will put links to everything I'm referencing this time, because I really want you to go to this European Reproduction Sampler website and the Scarlet Letter website. There's some great samplers there. I did purchase some. So as I said, Saxony samplers are long and narrow because they were limited by the width of the loom. And Sabine from European Reproduction Samplers tells us, Saxon samplers of this period are characterized by the fact that they are long and narrow and are usually divided into sections, a border panel, an alphabet panel, and a free panel showing many animal and plant motifs, and a personal reference. And that would be pretty true to form on Gigi R's Saxony sampler, right? We've got the bands, the alphabets, and all the different kinds of motifs. So this was my starting point, and I wanted to compare and find other samplers with similar motifs. And what do they mean? I noticed in my last FlossTube that there were motifs that were similar, spanning more than 100 years difference in time that these were stitched. And why was that? And I thought some of the motifs were quirky. And so the Scarlet Letter, the SDW sampler that I have started, is circa 1910, and it's most likely from Saxony, perhaps the Dresden area. The motifs that you can see on this sampler, along with my Saxony sampler from Gigi R, and actually let me get that cover. It'll be much easier to show. Okay, so similar motifs. There's a lot of them. The lion. Look at the lion. Very similar on both of them. Now, I found a book called Sampler Motifs and Symbolism. And this is readily available. And according to this book, the lion is a motif that shows strength, majesty, noble courage, royal authority, wisdom, protection, and Christ as the victor, just to name a few. There's also the Lamb of God on this sampler. And it's going to be really hard to see. It's right here. It's under the lion, the Lamb of God. That Lamb of God is also on the Betrothed, amongst a lot of other samplers that I've seen recently. There's actually 3 Lambs of God on the Betrothed, okay? So that's a common sampler, or that's a common motif that I've saw. And the Lamb of God, it's the Lamb of God, but a lamb can also represent youth and innocence, gentleness, humility, charity, and sacrifice. The peacock. A lot of these samplers have peacocks on them. It's right here, right there. And the peacock symbolizes pride and vanity. Makes sense. So as I said, in my last FlossTube, I was wondering why Saxony samplers spanning well over a century had similar motifs. Now that I know why, it's like, of course. The motifs are from Christianity, biblical stories shown in figurative language. So from the book, I've got lots of books to share with you today. Embroidery Motifs from Old Dutch Samplers. Chapter 2, Biblical Motifs, has this to say. There's a strong tradition of using biblical motifs on samplers stemming from the days when Christianity was infinitely more significant in people's lives than it is today. In many households, the Bible was the only book to be found. It was read daily, and people became steeped in its imagery. Biblical motifs and symbols were thus a normal part of everyday life for the devout young women and little girls who embroidered them, while later generations regarded them as sacrosanct and immutable. Okay, so that's from this book. I found a lot of similarities between Dutch and German motifs. Of course, it's Christianity. The Scarlet Letter SDW pattern provides this information. Saxony band samplers were made from the late 17th through the late 18th century, with later examples becoming increasingly shorter and included different motifs such as human figures. Okay, so she goes on to say in this pattern, the large case with flowers near the top could be derived from Rosen Helen first. Okay, this is another thing that really attracted me to this sampler. Can you see those flowers? Look at that urn and the flowers there. Okay, so she says these could be derived from Rosina Helen first. So of course I had to Google Rosina and get more information. And I found this book, which is in German. And let me read you a paragraph from the back cover, okay? It says, in this work, published around 1650 in Nuremberg, we can admire some of the beautiful drawings of Rosina Helena first. More than 50 patterns to be used for embroidery on knitwear or for tapestry stitches, among which cross-stitch with beautiful geometric patterns and flowers and shapes with 1 or 2 colors in Baroque style and approximately 20 patterns for needlepoint lace. Now, I'll show you a couple in here. Information about Rosina is she's the daughter of a German printmaker and publisher, Paul Fürst. She published various patterns for embroidery of counted stitches and laces during the second half of the 17th century. I'm going to show these quickly. These are patterns, but I felt, and the most of the book is in German, but I just thought that was such a great, it was probably an etching from that time. And so in looking through these patterns, look at the carnations. I think these are tulips. Got the floral motifs there. And this one. So I've enjoyed going through this book and will continue to do so. There's all kinds of band samplers in here that I'm trying to pair up with the band sampler patterns that I've purchased to see if I can identify any that perhaps came from Rosina. Returning to the SDW sampler, what stands out to me is the church. I haven't seen a church on a German sampler yet. And the Scarlet Letter provides this about the church. She says, the church is the most stunning and unusual element of this sampler. As far as we know, it's not from a printed pattern, but it's likely SDW's original design, possibly an existing Roman-style church or chapel, or one designed from a print. Interesting where they got the patterns from. Okay, another one I want to show you. Now, this is from European Reproduction Samplers website. The owner and designer there is Sabine. And this one is 178 wide, so even more narrow, and 868 stitches long. Look at that. There's the lion. There's that peacock. There's the dovecot that is on the Gigi R Saxony sampler. So is this tree with the 2 birds, and this tree, and that, all of this, except for that peacock. All of these motifs are on the Gigi R sampler that I'm stitching, the ATS 1871. Okay. So, as I said, The motifs from this sampler and from this sampler are similar, yet these were stitched 125 years apart. So the dove coat, which is here, the dove coat, I'm going to show you on the sampler. Here it is. There's the dove coat or dove cot. Okay. That's a compartmentalized birdhouse with perched or flying doves. And that definition is from the Sampler Motifs and Symbolism book that I just showed you. The grapevine, which looks like a tree with grapes, right here. This. Grapes are the symbol of the blood of Christ, and the wine is the Eucharist. And again, that definition is from Sampler Motifs and Symbolism. And the tree with two birds sitting under the tree right here, that can also be found on REH 1746. Let me find that tree. It's right here, right there. There's the dovecot. Same parrot is on Gigi R's, same lion. It's amazing the similarities. And look at all the beautiful bands in the bottom. There's the Lamb of God. So Sabine from European Reproductions has this to say about her REH 1746. She says, REH selected motifs by Johann, I hope I pronounce this correctly, Sibmacher, who was an engraver and draftsman from Nuremberg. Very popular and often stitched in those days, and the beautiful edging of Rosina Helena First, who was also a draftsperson from Nuremberg. REH, as the basis for her sampler, used them and stitched them with other familiar motifs, as the vine, the dovecoat or dovecot, the trees in the vessel, the lion, and the cat catching mice. There was another new name, Johann Sibmacher, so I had to Google his name. One of the sites returned was the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Under Drawing and Prints, there's a book by Johann from 1597. And the book contains 7 pages of text surrounded by a decorative border and 35 pages for designs for weaving, embroidery, and cut linen. Amazon had that book. There it is. And I was amazed at the patterns that I found in this book, starting with the betrothed. This is the betrothed that I stitched. And if you look at the bride and the groom, there you go, the bride and the groom. They are here. There they are. So let me tell you a little bit about this book and Mr. Johann. It says that these patterns by Johann Sibmacher were first published in the late 1500s. The plates in this book date from an 1884 German reprint of the 1604 edition. Okay, so this plate was reproduced in 1884. The betrothed is dated 1889. So I'm guessing that's where she got the pattern from. Goes on to say, all 36 original pattern plates or book pages are reproduced here, each charted on graph paper. The classic designs have been used in lace making and embroidery for centuries and include a mix of medieval figures, animals, and fanciful mythological creatures in addition to detailed geometric patterns and borders. Designs charted on graph paper are a universal language which can be translated into needlepoint and counted cross stitch, with each square representing a single stitch. So, but what's really interesting to me is that peacock. We have seen that peacock on so many samplers, not just German reproduction samplers, at least in my experience. And then the band that is on one of the bands that is on this sampler is also found in this book, Above the Lamb of God. So there's the Lamb of God that you see on the Betrothed as well. So this book is available on Amazon. There are all kinds of beautiful bands and motifs, and I can't wait to continue doing more research to see other samplers that we can find with their origins from Johann's book. The same bride and groom that I just showed you can also be found on the sampler ICH 1733 on the Exemplaires website. From the Exemplaires website, it says, this interesting Southern German sampler is worked almost entirely in either vertical or horizontal rows of Montenegrin stitch. The samplers from the south are generally longer than wide and consist of horizontal rows of alphabets, religious and secular motifs, and geometric repeat patterns. Many of the patterns are from early German pattern books. The couple in the central panel and the geometric repeat pattern of 8 pointed stars are from Johann Sibmacher's, and I can't pronounce, they talk about this book in German. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. So the geometric patterns that I showed you are on that sampler on the Essamplaire's website. And it's the ICH 1733 sampler. I did take a look at it, and it's that band. Okay. I also have CAK 1769. This is also from European Reproduction samplers. And a couple things about this that remind me of motifs from not just German Saxony samplers, but other samplers I've stitched. Do you see that border? That's an acorn border, and many samplers from this time period apparently were framed with acorn borders, and acorns represent strength, prosperity, and the power of spiritual growth from truth. The spies of Joshua and Caleb carrying the grapes. This is something that we see on a lot of these samplers. And as a matter of fact, if you look at Gigi R's logo, it's the spies of Canaan. Okay, also on CAK 1769, winged angels above the tree of knowledge holding a wreath. We see this a lot, and this is where the stitcher would have put his or her initials and the year, but we see that very frequently over the Adam and Eve and Tree of Life. From Sabine at European Reproduction Sampler, she says the wreath is in the Christian culture a much-used symbol of eternity. Angels are regarded as a mediator between God and man. And I said the spies of Joshua and Caleb carrying a bunch of grapes. That depicts the biblical figures of Joshua and Caleb, who were two of the 12 spies that Moses sent to survey Canaan. They found a land so rich It had grown a bunch of grapes that required 2 people to carry it. And then the vase of carnations right here. Lots of meaning and symbolism in carnations. According to Christian culture, the carnation sprang up from where the Virgin Mary's tears had fallen to earth. I love the gate on this sampler. Love that urn. Okay, then we have AMN 1790, also from European Production samplers. And by the way, these come beautifully packaged. I'll show you as we get into more of my haul, but they come, the pictures come glued to this variegated board. Now, the original for this sampler is in the Museum for Hamburg History in Germany. And look, it also has the acorn border on it. Look what's there, the lobster. Okay, so here's another German sampler. This one has the lobster on it. Lobsters on samplers are shown as standing erect. In the 17th century, it was used as a term for a soldier of the Roundheads, and later any red-coated British soldier. The lobster is a saltwater crustacean, and similar crayfish is found in freshwater. Crayfish, a symbol of Christ for the resurrection, right? It sheds its shell. It changes its armor, the outer shell. So that's why there's lobsters on German samplers. The ship. We see a ship very often. There's a ship also on Gigi R's ATS sampler that I'm stitching. The ship represents hope and security and the soul's voyage to a safe haven. And then we have the spies of Canaan carrying the grapes as well. All right. IRS 1738. This is a German Saxon sampler by the Scarlet House. Oh, this is Moses receiving the 10 Commandments from an angel right there. Now, Adam and Eve, I'm sorry, Max, Max, no bark. No, I'm so sorry. Okay, so the parrot. Also Adam and Eve under the tree of life. There's a dove cot or coat, and there's also the crucifixion. And then look at all these beautiful bands. The IES 1704 German sampler from the Scarlet House. Look at the parrot. Big parrot right there. Oh, there's that peacock we've talked about. That was in Johann's book. There's the peacock. You see the Lamb of God and carnations. There's the Lamb of God right there. And carnations. Why am I not seeing them? There they are right there. There's so much to look at on these samplers, and I just love that. What really drew me to this was the elaborate geometric patterns. Look at those bands. So much going on, so much to love about this sampler. And then Hannah Katerina. This is also a German sampler by the Scarlet Letter, dated 1734. And on this sampler, you're going to see the figure of Justice with her scales. Joshua and Caleb, there they are right there. Solomon's Temple. We've seen this on a lot of samplers, not just German samplers. And then the parrot, another really beautiful parrot. Now, when I looked up the symbol, what it symbolizes, the parrot, I giggled. It symbolizes the woman, loquacity, gossip, mocking verbosity. And then the last one I want to show you is a Saxon alphabet sampler, circa 1730 to 1740, also by the Scarlet Letter. Look at that beautiful sampler. Now, from her pattern, she says, this is a partial German band sampler. The lower half was evidently removed at some point in its journey to the 21st century. It was probably made in Saxony in the area of Dresden. It's been arranged in 2 columns. The left side is finer stitching than the right. The sampler features a number of horizontal pattern bands, very precisely stitched, as well as an elaborate alphabet or alphabets, which were used as training for embellishments to towels, cuffs, pillowcases, and other household textiles. Such a really pretty, pretty band sampler. So that's what I have found out thus far. I find it fascinating, and I love looking through the books and trying to identify the different motifs and what they stood for. I hope you enjoyed this and it wasn't boring. I just find it so fascinating. All right, I want to move on to my plans. And for November, the attic is celebrating Gigi R's birthday. Gigi turned 90 in November. And I'm so excited that she's being highlighted. If you take a look at the November newsletter, you'll see all kinds of samplers designed by Gigi R. So I'd like to finish the ATS Saxony sampler. I'm so close. I'd like to get that finished. In January, I'm going to be starting a project with my friend, Nell. We're going to start, I think it's Greet. Greet Rathman, 1788 to 1789. Nell is Pale Fire Stitcher on Instagram, and she and I are going to start this beautiful sampler, another big one. I need to select the linen. I'm probably going to use DMC because I know I have all the DMC right here. And this is a Vierland sampler reproduced by Sabine at European Reproduction Samplers. So another big one I'm going to start, and I can't wait. Okay, after my last FlossTube, part of going down that rabbit hole is I purchased all kinds of samplers with motifs, looking for German samplers, but also I ordered several patterns from the attic, Gigi R patterns. So I want to show those to you now. Excuse me. So we'll start with the Gigi R, and then I have several from European Reproduction samplers that I want to share with you as well. Okay, so this is Gigi R, Maria's Sampler, 1831. Now this is a Portuguese sampler, and that just, it just really interested me. I don't think I certainly haven't stitched a Portuguese sampler before. So now on the cover of Gigi R's patterns, she always shows the antique. And if you can go online and look at one that's been reproduced, or if your LNS has any that are reproduced, take a look, because they always look so much better in person. This one made me chuckle. It's called the Big Cat Sampler. Mary Ann, it looks like John Cock, 1841. Look at the big cat. That is definitely a big cat sampler. with some funky motifs. Now I'm learning they're not so funky. Okay, the next sampler by Gigi R is called the Dutch Sampler, GT 1783. Look at that. Oh, that is so pretty. And I notice similarities, and it makes sense on the sampler that I'm about to start. Yeah, sure. The one I just showed you. Here. Okay, this one, this Vierlander is from Germany, and this is a Dutch sampler, but I see a lot of similarities, and that, of course, would make sense. Their countries are close to each other, but so pretty. The next one is Mary Forsyth and Mary Brown, 1838. I love that house. I'm not quite sure what's going on here. The peacock. That's a very Scottish sampler, peacock style. Now, I could be totally off on all of this. I just think it's so much fun to look at these and learn. This is Helena Willems, 1817, and front and center are the spies of Canaan, Joshua and Caleb. Look at these dovecots. There's a couple of ships on here as well at the bottom. And look at that. That's a very Dutch looking building. I don't know if it is. It just reminds me of some of the buildings in Amsterdam. Look at the chair. Now there's some funky motifs in there. Okay, next up, Mary Hunter, 1844. Oh, this is very sweet. Look at this. Such pretty colors. Okay, this one is an adaptation of an Italian sampler, Eleonora Koski, 1809. Now, what attracted me to this is look at the windows. Love the gate. And then this section is very similar to the lady in red spinning her wool. See up here? Very similar. And there's all kinds of cool motifs. Look at here. Eleonora Koski, 1809. Okay, this one I love. This is Anne Harding, 1811. It's also known as the polka dot cow sampler. There's the polka dot cow. Such a cool, I love the tassels that are stitched in too. Just a really cool sampler. But wait, there's more. This is Elizabeth Precious, 1817. That is just such a sweet little sampler. Yeah. The Morris Dancer. This is adapted from Maria Cooper Sampler, 1790. Oh, look at that. Look at that lady in her beautiful dress. Okay, this is French. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it, but I just thought it was really pretty, and it's in red, so how could I pass that up? The next one is Sampler 1750. Oh, this is one I may need to stitch. Look at that. Love those different motifs. Look at the lady right there with the triangular skirt. The next one is the Biedermeier sampler. Oh, reminds me of some Reflet de Soie samplers we've seen. This feels very French. It just says this is an adaptation of an antique sampler from the Biedermeier period. This is another Gigi R. It's in French. It's Table of Jean, and then of the Fontaine. I'll just show you the pattern because I'm gonna butcher the title. Isn't that pretty? These are all Gigi R patterns, and I do not have every single one of them. Susie Pierce, 1889. Oh, that border. Love it. Look at that border. Oh, here's another one I think I have to stitch. Elizabeth Anderson, 1775. Look at the carnation border. Oh, that's so pretty. All right, and then we have Mary Applewhite, 1855, with Adam and Eve in the center. Is that a parrot? Oh, look at the parrot. There's a parrot and there's a butterfly, really pretty. Okay, here's the last Gigi R. Mary Knowles, 1824, and then it says The Finding of Moses. This is a pretty unique sampler too. So those are the Gigi Rs that I purchased and added to my collection. I have several patterns that I purchased from Sabine at European Reproduction Samplers, and I want to show you that all the patterns come kitted separately in this envelope with this cover, and then the patterns, I'm not going to show you the pattern, but they're put in that envelope. So everything is packaged beautifully. I'm not even going to try and pronounce this name. This is a German, I think it's a German sampler. Friesland, that might be part of, might be more Dutch, but I love that alphabet and the motifs. There's the name. You can purchase all of these on European Reproduction Samplers website. By the way, all of the Gigi Rs, if you contact the attic, I'm sure they can hook you up with her beautiful patterns. All right, the next one that I want to show you, I have never seen a sampler with a house like a house in Amsterdam on it. And this is LDR 1753 by European Reproduction Samplers. That's one I'd love to stitch. There's the Spies of Canaan. What else? Looks like there's a man proposing or giving his his girlfriend some flowers. Just a beautiful, beautiful sampler. Then there's AVS 1731, and this is also from a museum in Berlin by European Reproduction Samplers. Look at this sampler. Oh, so much to love about this one. There's that peacock we see so many times. That's from Johann's book. Now this one is from a different area of Germany. It's RET 1714. So this is different from the samplers I have been showing you, but I just love the design and the flowers. And then AEK 1751, German sampler. And then this is the last one, CEG 1737. This is going to be hard to see just because the coloring on the antique, but so I hope you've enjoyed that walk through what I've discovered so far. I'm sure there'll be more because I've got more things that I'd like to research. So one other thing I wanted to share with you is I was able to purchase an Advent box from Seju, and it was 30% off because I just ordered it and it's already here. So I ordered it in mid-November. It didn't even take 2 weeks to get from France to my house. And of course there's all kinds of goodies in the top, and then I'll just show you what I've got. I'm gonna open up one envelope. Starting on December 1st, there are 24 envelopes. Oh, and I can't wait to see what's in there, and I will definitely share with you what is in the box. All different kinds of envelopes. It smells good too, so maybe there's something scented in there. All right, and then last but certainly not least, I have a giveaway. And it's a Gigi R pattern. Can you believe it? This is another one that I want to stitch. And I like it so much, I bought 2 of them. It's Virginie Grimaud, 1845. Look at that church. So I would like to give this away. And in your comments, please put Gigi. G-I-G-I. Gigi R is the designer. I'm going to be looking for Gigi. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching my FlossTube. I will hopefully be back sooner than later. And thank you for watching. Take care.